Mike and Mike, what in the heck is going on?
We're not wasting any time, right? Has it been a week already?
Man, I don't get it, man. I board a
Only
flight
yesterday
today.
saw
I
you
end up
guys.
in Baton. Yeah, I end up in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and then all this news is breaking. I tune in. My flight landed, and I turn on the Moscone press conference, and I hear this familiar voice in the background asking Jeremy Jones if there's going to be any fight in it. And I was like, that's Molina Mike, my boy.
Dude, I blacked out. I had no idea what was going on. I don't recall a single second of it. But it was different. It was interesting, and yeah, the news of the day, man. I mean, what can you say? It's shocking to say the least.
Yeah, we already have people chiming in. They say we look and sound great. Well, thank you, Corby. Appreciate that. Bang Time Pools asking who is taking Earl's spot.
Dude,
So
that guy Q
Jeremy
Strokes Arabia,
Jones.
he was there. He was there in the press conference. He had a killer camera, man. That setup that he had there was real nice, real
oh
sharp
really?
and clear. Yeah, yeah. His name was Sam. I forgot his last name, but real nice setup. He gave you like the 7 in on setup, Joey, for sure, no
Thanks.
doubt. And the breaks.
Just remember, Mike, you wouldn't be where you are today if it wasn't for me and my setups. Okay.
thousand
Right.
percent accurate, 1000% on point. So yeah, no, it's been a hell of a day. It's been long, man. I didn't expect this. I was very nervous going into the press conference because joining the likes of legends here, and on the media, and donkeys who were on flights. But yeah, we got wind, right as soon as they jumped off, right? I mean, maybe little birdies were chirping here and there, but uh, when they came out, and then you saw Team USA with only 4 players, it was like, oh boy, here we go. So, Mike, why don't you go ahead and share for those of you who've been having their head under a rock what exactly went down?
Well, what went down? Well, you wouldn't have known much about what went down based on the beginning of the press conference. It was just a very quick announcement that Matchroom was following strict government guidelines, and because of some uh, potential exposure, Earl quote withdrew from the event. So and then they kind of went just right into a couple player reactions and then into the rest of the interviews. So uh, you know, I wish there would have been a lot more information about what went down. I'm sure that there were reasons why there wasn't more information available, but bits and pieces have come together through the course of the day. And just, if you guys want, I just kind of recap it, which is that apparently someone on Earl Strickland's flight from the US to London, came off and tested positive. And so then they did the track and trace with people who were on that flight and tracked down Earl through Matchroom, since Matchroom does all the plane arrangements for everyone, and informed them that someone had tested positive. And Earl, I believe, is the only U.S. player, the only player from either squad who's not fully vaccinated. So if he were fully vaccinated, he would not have to self isolate, which is why I heard Shane was on the same flight with Earl. If he was, that's why Shane is not under the same restriction that Earl is under. Earl was not fully vaccinated, so he's required by law in the UK to self isolate for 10 days. And I believe it was supposed to be, I looked up their guidelines and their rules, and it says it's 10 days from when you would have had contact with that person. So it would have been 10 days after he got off the flight, which ironically would be uh, this coming Friday, the 10th, which is the final day of the Moscone Cup. So, really, really unfortunate situation, just shocking, and um, just feel terrible for Earl, who really was, so excited and practicing so hard and so determined to play well this week. And it had the fan. It was the whole buzz. This was the story of the tournament was Earl playing. There's no doubt about it. So just a real shame all around.
Yeah, just to touch base on a few things in the chat, and then we'll follow up with you, Mike. But can everyone hear us all right? Is the audio coming in good? Because I see Corby saying he can't hear anything. So if you can, just let us know in the chat how we're all coming through. Yeah, it's I when stuff I hate whenever things like this get into sports, and especially the sport that I love, because it's very annoying and frustrating, and everybody turns into health experts and government law experts, and it's just very draining, and all the negativity and all this announcements that we're not going to go and watch. I don't want to hear how you're not going to go and watch. I try to just stay as upbeat and positive as you can. But you know what, Mike? I haven't seen the pool world kind of like come together in a sense, as far as everyone feeling the same way for Earl, where everyone just kind of feels like they just took a punch in the stomach and feel for the guy.
Yeah, it was a gut punch for sure for everyone. I mean, the European fans couldn't wait to see Earl. European players couldn't wait to play Earl. I mean, you're talking about the players who were on this team had never played Earl. Earl was playing back when Soke and Niels and Mika and Darren and those guys were always on the team. So these guys were all going to get a chance to play in a Moscone Cup with Earl Strickland, for the first time. So they were excited. Obviously all the U.S. fans were excited, and just the buzz that was generated around it, I think, was going to bring in people who may not have otherwise tuned in. So, but I'm with you 100%. All the people are like, well, I'm going to boycott the event now, and I'm not going to watch it, whatever. I mean, come on, this is still the Moscone Cup.
Yeah.
USA is going to be there, fighting their hardest. And so you rally behind the boys. They're going to try to rally behind Earl. You rally behind the boys, and we still try to get it done.
It's so tough. Go ahead, Joey.
Well, I was just going to say, I got off my flight today and I learned about it. And then, looking at the different threads on Windows Open when you posted it, Mike, and seeing what people were saying about it, it was really frustrating to me because, for a couple years now, we've been living in this whim where, there's just two sides to everything, and one thinks they're right, the other side thinks they're right. And for a while, pool was my escape from that. And I get caught up in it too. I have my opinions, but pool was always my escape. I didn't have to worry about those political arguments and, vaccination, not vaccination, mask, not mask. And it was like today that was all over the pool chatter. And it was like, really, unfortunate, considering the fact that we're still about to enter into the best event of the year for pool fans. And so on a more positive spin to this, as disappointed as we all are, and as I'm sure many, many pool fans are, how cool is it that we're going to get to see Jeremy Jones compete at this event? I think that's an interesting side of this now. I mean, it's not like Jeremy doesn't play pool anymore. He goes out and competes in a lot of different events, and I wouldn't be surprised if he came out and actually did some damage here in this tournament. Nobody's expecting much from him. It's like the perfect scenario for him to come into this thing and steal a few points. I don't know. What do you think, Mike? You're making faces.
I don't know. We asked Jeremy, jokingly, are you going to be, whenever we did the one pocket rankings, I think.
Bring your cue with you.
Yeah, you're bringing your cue with you. And he said very matter-of-factly, like, absolutely not, 1,000%. I love seeing the conspiracy theorists of how they want to keep the American team down. I can guarantee everyone on planet Earth that they want nothing more than the American team to be competitive. And it was already going to be a stretch having Earl on there. And it's going to be just that much tougher having Jeremy. And I know he's been playing a little bit. He was at the International, if I'm not mistaken. I know he at least played in the one pocket there, so I'd imagine he played in the 9-ball. But this is different, and he hasn't been preparing as a player. It's frustrating that they weren't alternatives, but at the same time, like, I don't know what those logistics and what that expense would be as far as having an alternate there. And I've seen that a lot on some of the posts. Obviously, some guys were saying they'd be interested in going. and who wouldn't be. But yeah, it's a situation that nobody wanted to have happen. Not the European team, definitely not the American team. I'd message Emily after the fact and just thanking her for letting me come on the press conference. And I was like, it's so tough seeing those guys because as soon as they were on the press conference, they all looked kind of defeated. Their body language was just very like shruggish and down. And she was like, they had just found out, which means that they tried every which way they could up until the last minute to try to save this and save Earl from, not playing because they didn't want it to go and happen for a number of reasons. Like you said, Mike, everybody wants to go and watch the man play. I talked about this hypothetically last night, like what would the story have been if Earl wasn't there? And it wasn't because I knew anything, because I didn't. Yeah. But it's like there would have been a completely the whole dynamic of the event would have been different, and the life, at least for the press conference, kind of got sucked out of it at that time.
Yeah, a lot of air left the room, in a hurry. You could see the body language with the players. They're trying to keep their chin up. They're trying to, say that they're still excited about it, and Jeremy's going to still play hard because that's what Americans do, and he's right. And but you still, I have to believe that they're having to talk themselves into this a little bit because it just had to be that deflating. And as far as other players taking Earl's place, I think, like you said, I think that this is something that really they didn't find out about until really late in the game, and we're trying every angle and resource or whatever to get him through it. But you're talking about a company who deals with a lot of athletes and with the government and getting athletes in during COVID times, and put on all these events. They're not going to risk their good standing with the government agencies that they lean on for help in getting these events off the ground by doing something stupid and let Earl play when the government says you just can't. So, that to me was kind of a no-brainer. As far as Jeremy goes, he might, maybe playing doubles, maybe he steals a point. I don't think that we'll see him play more than 3 times. He's going to put himself into the bare minimum.
Oh, it'll be the minimum. It has to be, right, Mike?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
right? It has to be the minimum. And right. I don't listen. The guy doesn't shoot as straight as he did, let's say, 15 years ago. So 4-inch pocket certainly is going to be, up against it for Double J. I watch him play a lot, and I've seen him play more one pocket, and I know it's got a lot of movement in there. But it's like there'll be times when he's playing, let's say, on a tougher table, and he ain't shooting at his hole. So I'm curious how that table is gonna go and affect him as well. But like I want to be optimistic and I want to be positive because I just can't I can't get sucked into that negative drain, man. I just can't, Joey, and it's super frustrating.
Yeah, I think he's going to surprise you, Mike. I think he's going to play well. The word is he plays really well on fast, slick tables, and we know he's got the knowledge, right? That's kind of his job, imparting that knowledge on all the rest of the team, and I'm excited to see him do it. Obviously, we all wanted Earl, right? But we don't have it. But, I think one thing that's interesting about this, and guys, thanks for the comments in here. There's some great comments. I've been reading through them as we keep it up. We'll try to mention them when we can. But I think one thing that's kind of a valid point, kind of like if you had a wrestling, you were going to the Olympics, you'd bring a couple alternates, right? And that's been brought up several times today. But I think while this pandemic is still going on, while there's different restrictions from different countries, that has to be brought into consideration, to bring over a couple extra players just for this sort of thing. I think has to be part of the equation if we're in the same state we are next year when the event goes on. Fortunately, we had Jeremy. Imagine if Molina Mike was a U.S. captain.
Oh, I was gonna say, man. Hey, listen. Hey, wait a minute. Easy now. You want to talk about catching some rails, boy, all right? You want to talk about not shooting at your hole? I'm playing 2 ways the entire every five games I'm in. I'm playing 2 ways because I'm only playing 5 games every match, so I'm losing 5. No, but anyway,
people were asking before they found out it was JJ. They were asking who could fill in. Nate Mindham's over there. Could he do it? And we know Nate plays pretty good, but my buddy from Colorado is over there, Tony Piazza, and that guy plays really good too. I mean, he could have been somebody they could have tried to get in there. He's probably a 725, 730 Fargo. Who knows? You know.
I don't know. Like it's. I mean, you could argue scenarios all day. Like I guess I would have rather have seen maybe a higher dose of Shane, and try to spin it that way and kind of adjust the rules. But then you'd have the Europeans up in arms. But is it
Yeah.
any much is it any more fair, putting Jeremy out there? If that's the case, okay, well then put Laley in there whenever he's matching up against them. So at least it's somewhat of a balance there, right? Because one team's kind of getting punished over the other in that regard. I like the thing about it is that there's no guideline or something to go off of to see how people go and react, and whether it's companies or otherwise, to say like these are the things you go and do throughout a pandemic. Everyone's just kind of trying things and seeing if it works. Definitely this is going to be a learning experience for them, right? Because they didn't, anticipate it. But yeah, I don't know. I was left kind of like I was left speechless at times.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's certainly a lot of expense in bringing a player or two over as alternates. So you've got that going into it, and the players were going over a week early, and so I think that they kind of felt like if people got off the plane and tested negative, you're going to be good. If people got off the plane and tested positive, you had a week to get someone else in there. But this was just one of those storm things where they track someone down
So
5
brutal.
days later, and because he wasn't, vaccinated, he falls into this guideline restriction. And to be honest, I mean, that was the risk he took. He had to know that coming over here, and I'm guessing that it was explained to him, before he left to come over here, that this was a possibility. So again, just a perfect
Let
storm of bad situation.
Let me ask you this, Mike, because this is one part of it that really just got under my skin with this, and it was the fact that if I'm the promoter and I know that if this scenario were to pop up, that there's a possibility of this happen, and I know that Earl Strickland is not vaccinated, I'm saying thank you, but we don't need you. Like
Yeah,
that's
I
what
mean,
I would
so
go and say, because I don't want that possibility. I don't want there even to be a chance of him being able to kind of ruin the show.
yeah, no, it's a good point, fair point. And I don't know how much consideration was given to that ahead of time. I don't know if Jeremy talked to Earl ahead of time and said, listen, it really wouldn't have had enough time to get vaccinated even when he learned he was playing, because he would have had to be fully vaccinated, which would have been the second shot as well. So I don't know if there would have been enough time for him to do it anyways. But that's certainly something that they might they might think about next time.
Penozo,
You know,
what's the
like
rule in terms of how long he needs to isolate? Like, could they have
10.
noticed vaccinated, so let him go over a week earlier?
There's a lot of things, in
yeah,
hindsight they could
that's
have
fair.
done. Sure, absolutely. So, but the longer he's over there by himself, the harder it is to keep him from getting near anyone else that might let him become positive while he's there, because they were testing all the way along the way. And they
Right.
couldn't really seclude everyone until about now. So they tested everybody, I think, in the last day or so, and now the players are pretty much, in a bubble. So, yeah, I mean, in hindsight, there's a lot of things that might have been done, but yeah, that was the risk that Earl took and Team USA took, and it was a 90-1 shot that it was going to bite him in the butt, but it bit him in the butt.
It
Mm.
did. It certainly did. And pool fans across the world are kind of just taken aback by it. And but at the end of the day, it's not the Mosconi Cup that we hoped it would be. But I'm still
Right.
watching. You know, I think that now more than ever, this. I mean, listen, all these guys saying, oh, they should rally together and they should just boycott it. They should not play for Earl. Listen, you go and walk out on $15,000 guaranteed money, and we'll see how you go and feel. You go and have to, and Matchroom puts up so much financially to go and put this show on. They would have taken such a lump. I mean, there's no, for me, there's no happy medium there. The show must go on.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, you're not gonna scuttle an event from a promoter that does all this for pool and puts this much money into pool and they laid out this much to get the event going, you're not gonna, you know, pull Team USA basketball and not take your medal and go home. It just, you play through it. I mean, if he'd have gotten hurt, if he'd have whatever, there's a lot of different scenarios that could have affected the team. So he could have just gotten sick. Who knows? Stuff like that can happen. So you rally and you muscle up and you get the job done. Or you just
somebody had
which is what they'll do.
Yeah, somebody had an interesting comment earlier that said when Earl was picked, everybody threw a fit, because it's like, oh, how can you pick Earl? He's such a poor sport, all this stuff. And now today, everybody's like, oh, Earl's not going to play. I'm not watching, all this. Or you?
I'm front and center on that. So,
everybody.
At the beginning, I thought it was a bad pick. I didn't understand it. I questioned whether Earl could handle it. But the closer it came, and the more you saw his enthusiasm and his commitment and all that, it started to become a little more interesting and a little more fun. And as it got closer and closer, everybody was like, geez, this could be kind of cool to watch. So, I will admit at the beginning, I was not a fan of the pick or of the choice. But in the past week or two, I was all in on, excited to watch him play.
I had a little hiccup there, guys. Sorry. But well, the point I was going to make that I think is kind of interesting, when people were thinking about that pick with Earl, there was the upside of, wow, he's got a lot of firepower. If he channels some of his historic, abilities, then this could be good for the U.S. But then there was a whole other side that was talking about all the ways this could go wrong for the U.S. And so now we have.
They were all real possibilities.
Yeah. Well, now we have a more stable personality in there. And so could this really benefit the United States? And not just about Jeremy's play. Like if Jeremy does only play the minimum amount of matches, could it benefit the U.S. because there won't be that potential blow up factor or whatever Earl may have done?
It's certainly going to benefit the U.S. in the standpoint that Shane and Sky are going to get more matches out of this. Because, I think everybody was it was a foregone conclusion that Earl would have been in both fan choice matches, right? So
we said that. I know I said that.
Now you've got Shane and Sky out there for more matches. So that improves U.S. chances automatically. So, that's one way of looking at it.
Yeah, I want to ask the folks that are in here. We got across the different platforms, 117 people now. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. Who do you guys want to see from they didn't announce did they announce the fans' choice today? How did that work?
No, I think they do that first thing I think they may have done it tonight before the teams went to bed, but they probably won't announce it until the morning, I believe, because I think the team needs to know before they put their lineup together what the fans' choice is, because it'll affect their the way they're going to line everybody up.
Yeah.
So I think that the captains know who the fans' choice is, but we don't. As far as the singles for the first day, the doubles or is it the singles the second day?
No, I think the fans' choice for singles is still going to be day 2, ain't it, Mike?
Right, correct. Day 2, yeah, you're right.
But they're only having 4 matches tomorrow, though. Right?
That's what
it's only going to be yeah. Because I think, and I know the bookies that had the same thing, because there was a possibility of a tie, whereas traditionally there's 5 matches played on day 1. Tomorrow there will only be 4 matches.
Right.
Yeah.
So it'll be Tuesday.
And here's an interesting gambling question, and I'm curious to get your thoughts on this, Molina, Mike. Can I get out of my bet that I made on the U.S. now?
1,000%. It's completely different.
My guy won't let me out.
Well, I would tell him this, and this is what I usually say when it comes to stuff like that. Come and collect. Come on over and come collect your money whenever it's done then, and see if you get it. So.
Yeah, but like if you do a futures bet on baseball, you're taking the Yankees to win the World Series, and their star pitcher gets hurt and he's on injured reserve all year, you don't get your money back.
No, but you're betting a win based off of a premise that there's a specific 5 guys going and competing. So once one of those guys is out, the whole premise of the bet is out the window. No pun intended. So um yeah, it's for sure you got every right in the world to go and get out of your bets. And I know a lot of people have the line, at least on the bookies. What I saw last night was 2.5 for the US, and it shifted over to 3. I know at least a few guys that I know that bet pretty decent that were laying games went from I think 4 to 5. So that they're giving on the wire for USA. So
What about the money
yeah, I
line?
mean no, now from 2.5 to 1 on the money over to 3. And I think, but that's through the bookies. I think realistically, on the rail, at least here in the States, it's a lot more than that. Because I mean, I still see guys going asking for a lot more than 3 to 1, and I think 3 to 1 would be a cheap line to go and lay. So, yeah, I mean, it's nobody wanted it to go and happen, and we said it already, but I think at the end of it, and I've never been that homer, and I've never been that like rah 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 kind of guy, but I want to see people kind of get behind the Americans, and just support them, and just like let's just root them on. They've gotten dealt a raw hand like 2 years straight, right, Mike? I mean, let's be real.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been tough for Jeremy Jones to go and be a captain 2 years in a row because he's had just one sucker punch after another and one gut check after another in his entire time of being a Mosconi Cup coach and captain. And to
What
this
was
to
the sucker
happen
punch
like
last
on
year, Mike? You're just talking about they just lost all those Hill
Bergman,
matches. Oh,
no
Bergman,
Bergman,
right?
right?
Oh,
Yeah, no Bergman right before. And he
that's
was
right.
and he was the first player announced for Team USA before
Right.
a Shane. I mean, we knew Shane was an automatic, but Bergman was the very first player announced, and Corey jumped in last minute.
That's
So
right.
um but yeah, I mean, just
Gosh, it's like lightning struck twice with COVID. Crazy.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, but I asked Jeremy this whenever we had him on. I think on Cue It Up, and I said, "Is it fair to go and judge him?" And I'm going to ask you the same question, Mike. Like, is it fair to go and judge his performance this year, all things considered?
No, absolutely not. I mean, come on, he's having to play and coach at the same time. Wasn't expecting to play. Hasn't practiced playing. As far as I don't think he's been in any doubles matches with anybody to see who he partners up well with, and so it's just grab your cue and do the best you can. Maybe he'll catch the same mojo that boys in Appleton caught in the World Cup of pool. Yeah, but to judge him on this, no, really, really tough break for them this year. And this was supposed to be a U.S. year, so they were already behind the 8 ball a little bit, having to travel 2 years in a row to go over there. So I
Yeah,
think he
all the
gets a
uproar
pass. I think he
from
gets a pass on this
guys
year.
on the internet over that.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, well, I get it.
Yeah.
I mean, it made sense. It made sense for them to do it in the UK because we were still looking at a lot of
I
restrictions
agree.
and a lot of what ifs and a lot of whatever. And their production and their whole crew and their office is there. So the
Right.
easiest thing to move around are the players. The hardest thing to move around is the production. So that made all the sense in the world for them to have it there this year. So, but it doesn't make it any easier for Jeremy or the American players to have to face this
No.
2 years in a row and then get sucker punched 2 years in a row. And, so I think you're right to a certain extent. I think there'll be a lot of, uh, the U.S. will be sentimental favorites. I think even European fans would like to see, just because a close match is more fun to watch, but I think they'd like to see the U.S. acquit themselves well, given the circumstances. It would say a lot about their heart, and we all know the guys on this team; they all have a ton of heart. So yeah, we'd all like to see that happen.
I like some of the comments coming in here. Manny Rod, give JJ a little credit. Real players stay ready. Either you can handle the pressure, or you can't. Greg Saylor, JJ's going to surprise us. I'm telling you guys, I said it first, but these guys are agreeing with me. JJ's going to surprise you.
I'm not saying the guy can't play pool. All I'm saying is
Oh,
he hasn't been
we're
playing.
talking
He
about him
hasn't
like
been
he's
playing
an
with
APA
with
5.
champions. Well, no, but I mean, going and playing like here and there, here in the States, going and screwing the queue together every 2 months is one thing. playing like serious. Like I said this before. Scott played Tony. It's like it's different between going and playing with like the locals and going and playing against world class elite talent. And these are the best of the Europeans.
So who from Team USA? Who from Team USA really showed up last year? The person we least expected, right? At the time, his name was Chris Robinson, right? Yeah. He actually played really well. Nobody was expecting it. People were questioning the pick. I'm telling you, in an environment like this, I don't think
that's the difference. Like
I don't think that gets to Jeremy Jones. I think he's going to come out and play really well.
I mean, I hope you're right. I want it to be competitive. I'm not a Jeremy Jones hater by any stretch, and I don't want to go and see anyone go and get slaughtered at all. I don't. When I ask questions, it's just to kind of get Mike's opinion or your opinion on it. I hope it is great, and I hope there are Cinderellas because I love that. We talked about this the other day. I love the Darren and Carl story. I thought that was fantastic, and I thought for me that was the story of the year. Watching pool. So I would love nothing more than for that to go and happen. It's going to be tough. I mean, he's up against it. I mean, he really is up against it. And he's in a no-win situation there, I think, because
I think he's in a no-lose situation. No one's expecting anything out of him. They just say, you got to go fill up the page on a couple of matches. So just go out there and do your best. And, that to me puts a little bit of pressure on the people who are playing him. You're supposed to run them over, and no matter who it is from Team Europe, they're supposed to run them over. So if they don't, again, we talked about this before. It's a race to 5. The only tough thing is 4-inch pockets, fast cloth, and you're playing some of the best players in the world. You can't miss much. Can you go steal a match? Yeah, but you're going to have to shoot pretty perfect.
And gray cloth. Don't forget about that. Gray cloth. Gray table. It's like everybody forgot about that.
Last night?
No, everybody forgot about it.
It's genius. It's genius now. The gray table is now completely off of everyone's mind now.
Nobody cares.
It's a witch hunt now. That's all it is.
Oh man, that's crazy. Guys, let's give folks the details for tomorrow in case they're just tuning in. What time does this kick off? Give it to us in Central Time, Mike.
Central Time is noon Central Time.
Noon Central.
Correct?
Yeah, it'll be noon Central Time.
It's going to look a little something like that. It'll be the singles.
Yeah, you were kind of choppy a little bit.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was just trying to show the lineup. I'm working through stuff internet here at my hotel. Sorry about that. But yeah, so anything else, guys, for tonight?
Well, if you only have one singles match tomorrow, does that change at all what you were thinking to do with your lineup?
What do you mean, Mike?
Well, there would normally be 2 singles matches on the first day. So now Jeremy can only pick 1 singles match for the first day. Does he put who's going to play 5th in that number 3 slot, or does he stick with his original plan?
I'd be curious. I'd be curious. I would think it'd have to change. I think why not just get his single match out of the way and just kind of I'm gonna go and play and be done with that singles match. And I mean, there's a lot of strategy and rules that are when it comes to applying that lineup. So I mean, yeah, he got tossed a monkey wrench, that's for sure. So brutal. Yeah. No, but I mean, listen, I will just leave it at this for me, and it's I hope everyone just goes and supports it, whether it's the Americans or still watching, because going and not doing it or not watching isn't going to go and get anyone any further. So a lot of those guys, you saw it on their face, they were already kind of just sluggish, and I hope that their spirits are a lot higher tomorrow. I hope they go and give it hell. I hope they do have a lot of fight, but I know that how can you not just kind of feel like the wind got kicked right out of you, after this morning. So, but they're professionals, right, boys? And, they're going to go and treat it as such.
And we have fans this year. If you think last year they did the best they could do with what they had. But this year, there's going to be fans. We're going to be back to that environment where there's going to be hooping and hollering. It's going to be a lot of fun. Final thoughts, Mike Penozo?
Yeah, I mean, I hope that everybody supports it as well. I mean, I want to see them go out there and play well. And one thing that I guess I just kind of throw back at you guys, what do you think there's any chance that that after today the Europeans lose a little bit of uh, you know, go out there and get them type attitude? Do you think that
Yeah, maybe
they
they're
relax a
overconfident.
little bit? Do you think that just
I don't think he means
not only
that.
overconfident, but just
Yeah.
a little wind got taken out of their sails as well? I mean, they just know
Hmm.
that the whole dynamic of the event changed in one morning. Um, you know, did a little air come out of their balloon too? Is that possible?
It looked like it. It did whenever they asked them any questions about Earl. It seemed like before there was a lot of talk of like, oh, we're going to war and we're going after the Americans and we're going to kill them and we're going to crush them. I didn't hear any of that today. I mean, but
Yeah,
I
it
don't
was.
want like I don't want that. I don't want that sympathy either. I still want them to go and like, you know, I want both of them to give him hell, and I think they will, and I hope they will. And you know what? It's time for everyone else to kind of step up. You know, when you're a team, and whenever you're a man down, you know, it's like next man up. And I know they didn't expect Jeremy to go and be there, but it's five. You know,
Think
Yeah.
about
five.
this. Suppose it happens. Suppose the United States digs deep and wins this year with this happening. I mean, that would be truly the spirit of America, right? The underdog, and going over there and this happening, and then they dig deep and they find a way to pull it out. What a story that would be. That
Is
would be all over Billiards Digest, wouldn't it, Mike?
I think I could devote a couple pages to it.
is is Earl gonna be in Vegas next year playing on Team USA?
Did he get a mulligan? I don't know. It's a good question. I thought about it a little bit today too. Um, it just depends on, does he keep
Will he
playing as
get
much
paid?
next year as he did this? I think that, oh yeah, I think he gets paid this year. If not his whole piece, a pretty good chunk of it. I mean, he was ready to play. He did the work. He put it in there. He's not even sick. He didn't do anything wrong.
He didn't even test
So,
positive.
so it's kind of a tough thing to hold back on him. But I think he would have to play a lot again next year, and I think he would have to show some good finishes for them to have that kind of confidence in him again next year. I'd love to see him get another chance next year to be in the U.S. And that would be a rollicking good time. So, we'll see. But they got, hopefully they got 4 days ahead of them against Europe this week, and we'll see what comes out of that.
Before Earl got picked this year, I didn't hear one person suggest him for the team. And so just because he was selected this year, be the offseason chatter going into next year, right? Like, are they gonna pick Earl again? Is Earl gonna get there? I think because so many people are looking forward to it this year once his name was selected, that now his name is back in the hat, and there's a possibility. So I think people will be talking about it all year after this event.
I think it's going to be interesting to see how he responds. When he gets done with his isolation, and God help the hotel staff at that hotel in London for the next 6 days. But when he gets when he gets back, it's going to be interesting to see how he responds. Is he going to respond with getting out there and playing tournaments and being aggressive, or is this going to be a deflating moment for him? Is this going to be the kick in the gut that he's just like, I give up. So we'll see what happens with that too. That's going to be an interesting scenario.
I mean, Joey said it right. Like everyone who was just hating on the pick all of a sudden is just like Team Earl, and I get it for sure. But it's like, man, some of you guys can just switch up like so fast. It's unbelievable.
It's a lot of it's
That's part of the
sentiment,
fun.
right? I mean, yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, as much as there's people out there that can't stand Earl, with the way he's behaved over the years, I don't think anybody kind of wishes that even on their worst enemy,
Oh,
for them to
nobody
get over
wants
there,
that.
be prepared to play, be ready to play, not be
Yeah.
sick, but because of this regulation and
Can't even
restriction being
imagine what
held.
he's going through.
Yeah,
Can't even
it's
imagine what
terrible.
he's going through. It's got to be just awful. Awful.
Well, guys, thanks for joining in. Appreciate everybody tuning in. We had to just get on here tonight. Like I said, I was in the air all day, and when I landed, I could not believe the news. But as always, Molina Mike and Windows Open kept us up to date on things. And we thank once again Mike Pinozzo for joining in from Billiards Digest. Great chat tonight. And so we'll probably be back tomorrow night. Chat with you a little more.
Let's see what happens. I know I'm going to be watching. Hope everyone else is also. So everybody have a good night.
USA.
Thanks, Pinozzo.
You guys.
My pleasure. Thank you.